Hey everyone, my name is Paul Vacheski and welcome to the Real Estate Classroom YouTube channel. Real quick before we get started on today's video, give this video a thumbs up, hit that red subscribe button, click on the notification bell, comments, any questions down below, I would appreciate it. In today's video, one of the three types of specific appraisals we're going to talk about. This one is the cost approach to valuation. Everything you need to know for your real estate exam coming up in this video. So in this video, we're going to discuss a specific type of appraisal called the cost approach to valuation. Now, we're going to review the other two because if you're studying for your real estate exam, you cannot review enough. There are three types of appraisals or approaches to appraising or determining value you have to know. The first one is the sales comparison approach. I already did a video on that one. And then there is the cost approach. That's the one we're doing today. And then the third one is an income approach. That'll be my next video. We're going to discuss how we come to value using income that a property generates, using the gross rent multiplier, key real estate term you need to know, and the capitalization rate, also a key real estate term you need to know. But in today's video, it's all about the cost approach. Now, you've seen this slide before in a previous video. The cost approach is used for those unique type properties, those properties where there are no comparables and there are no income streams to use to derive a value. And these are properties such as churches or municipal buildings or hospitals or even new construction if it's never been occupied, because if it's never been occupied, then it's not subject to depreciation. The other thing to understand about the cost approach to appraisal is it's the only approach that takes into consideration depreciation. And depreciation is a key real estate term that you have to know. And we will define it more on the next slide. There is the formula right there. Replacement cost minus depreciation. We add back in the land value. That gives us our appraised value. Now, another thing to understand about the cost approach, it's the only type, real important to remember this, it's the only type of approach to valuation that takes into consideration depreciation. I know I've killed that dead horse, but I really want you to grasp that. Now, there is your formula. We're going to talk about all three components. The first one in our formula is replacement cost. Now, notice I have replacement cost versus reproduction cost. Reproduction cost is the first time we've talked about this term, and you have to know it. So, most cost approach to appraisals takes into consideration replacement cost. Now, that is the cost required to rebuild that church or that hospital in today's dollars, creating a reasonable duplicate of the current structure. That's the key, a reasonable duplicate in today's dollars, because remember, building costs today are much more than they were when that original church was built. That is a replacement cost. Now, what's reproduction cost? There are times when an appraiser is doing an appraisal on a very, very unique building, such as a building that's on let's say a historical registry, where if it burns down, we want to replace that improvement in the exact manner that it was. We're going to create an exact duplicate of that dwelling or that improvement. If we're going to do that, then we have to do an appraisal called, or we're going to have to use what's called reproduction cost. It's exactly like the subject property. Those are the differences between those two terms. Part two of our formula, depreciation. Now, I've already previously defined it, but depreciation in real estate is simply a loss in value for any reason. Now, here are three types of depreciation that I've put on your screen. We have physical depreciation, we have functional obsolescence, and we have economic obsolescence. And understand that all three of these types of depreciation can be what's called curable or incurable, depending on the dollar amount it's going to take to bring it up to code or bring it in line with the neighborhood or whatever the case may be. So for example, physical depreciation, this is from normal wear and tear. Did the owner maintain the property, replace the roof? Did they do painting when they should have? those type of things. And there are times when an owner allows a property to so deteriorate that it becomes incurable. Think about condemned homes. Most condemned properties, for the most part, are beyond repair. It would cost too much money to bring them up to standards, and it's cheaper just to tear them down and put something new on the lot. That's an example of incurable physical depreciation. Now, functional obsolescence can be curable or incurable, and the determining factor is typically the floor plan. If a home just needs to be, maybe the kitchen is outdated or the bathrooms are outdated, that's not typically incurable. However, if it's a bad floor plan in the first place and it's a 6-bedroom home and there's only 1 bathroom, that's probably incurable, because the amount of work that it's going to take to restructure that building or that home to put in additional bathrooms, the cost, it's cost prohibitive. So that would be an example of an incurable functional obsolescence. The last one is economic obsolescence. Again, it can be curable or incurable, but it's not curable by the individual homeowner, which is unique to the other two. This is where a community is regressing or progressing, okay? So if the housing stock of a community is declining, that may be incurable for that home, no matter how good that individual home is. And then the third part of our component is land value. And this is interesting because an appraisal, when they're doing a cost approach, is actually going to use a sales comparison approach to determine the value of the land. So those are your 3 components to the cost approach. Now let's put numbers to it. So on your screen, we have the formula. You have to know this formula for your real estate licensing exam. You just do. So just commit it to memory. But let's put numbers to this formula. So let's say that an appraisal or appraiser, they have determined that this church that they're doing a cost approach to evaluation on, the appraiser has determined to replace this church is going to cost $500,000 in today's dollars. And again, how did they come up with that number? Well, the appraiser does belong to certain types of services that they become members of. Will give them all the information that they need to do these types of appraisals. You don't have to know that for your real estate exam. So $500,000 replacement cost. The appraiser has determined the subject property, the current church that we're trying to determine the valuation on. He or she has determined there's $120,000 in depreciation. Now remember, we only depreciate the improvements, not the land. We never depreciate land, period. And then we add back in the land value that the appraiser actually did a sales comparison approach to determine the land value. He or she's determined that the land is worth $250,000. We do all of our adding and subtracting, and we come up with an appraised value of $630,000. This is how we come to valuation using the cost approach. Now, don't forget, this is so important, guys, as you're studying for your real estate exam. 3 types of appraisals. There is the sales comparison approach, the cost approach, and the income approach. I've already done a video on the sales comparison approach. If you want to learn more about the income approach, video number 1 discussing the gross rent multiplier is right here to my right. If you have not subscribed to the channel, click on the little circle to my left. Comments or questions, put down below. I would appreciate that. That's all I got. I'll see you in the next video.